Alright, hello and welcome back YouTubers. I'm Protomario and today we are reviewing Earthworm Jim 2 for many consoles, but primarily we're going to be looking at the SNES and Sega version because those are the versions I remember it on the most, though this game is also available on the PlayStation, MS-DOS, Game Boy Advance, Virtual Console, and Windows PC. So this was developed by Shining Entertainment and Screaming Pink for the Sega Saturn and PlayStation, and published by Playmates Interactive Entertainment and Virgin Interactive. This game is a run-and-gun platformer starring Earthworm Jim. Jim is a earthworm who happened to have a super suit dropped on him, and he became a superhero. Needless to say, this game is from the 90s, and one of the funniest cartoon shows that was ever created was adapted into a video game that was a sequel created from the original Earthworm Jim game, and it was released in the late 1995 and 96, depending on the region that you were so wonderfully put into. So if you happened to be an American at the time, you probably played it a bit early. At any rate, on with the review. Basically, the game is very similar to that of Earthworm Jim. In its core, it looks and feels similar, but that's about where the similarities end. While the original did contain a large amount of puzzles, and it did have some parts where things got hectic, some minigames, and, of course, the brutal difficulty. In the end, it was a really fun game. In this one, that continues on. However, the puzzles and things of that nature are very, very different. While each level you do play through is a platforming level with Jim shooting at certain enemies and getting through them, almost every level features Jim having to pick up and carry something. Right out the box, Jim has to pick up and carry something on the first stage to a certain checkpoint in the level, or he can no longer proceed. Now that applies to several other levels, such as a cow, and it becomes tedious and annoying when you have to carry the cow through the whole level because a spaceship continuously is trying to abduct it. If it abducts the cow, you basically get screwed. So, while you're going through the game, you'll notice that these sections kind of repeat themselves and become a bit tedious and repetitive for a game of its age. Basically, there are sections very similar to when Jim became a worm and had to do the stages in the original Earthworm Jim without his super suit, but in this one it's a blind salamander, a blind cave salamander through essential passages while avoiding exploding sheep and hazards embedded in the floor and the wall. So again, different stages pop up, like racing against Psycho, but instead in a kind of weird third-person-y over-the-head look for the shooting part of this. I don't know. It's when Jim's riding on his rocket, and it's just really hard to explain the camera view. They went with something a lot different than what they did in the beginning. Now, for a number 2, these guys were adventurous, and they did change up a lot of things for this, which is really, really nice. But some of the things are a bit stale and repetitive, like carrying around the things to the end of the level. That's definitely what really got annoying to me. The game ends with Jim saving the princess, but all 3 of the characters eventually turning into random cows. So, whatever. The bosses are definitely changed up here. Unfortunately, there's not a boss at the end of each stage. The only 2 bosses that appear in this game is Pedro Papa and the unicycle riding Papa and Flaming Yawn, the fire-breathing steak. So, you know, not too many bosses, which is a shame, especially in an action run-and-gun kind of game. You're going to be running and you're going to be gunning, and that's a lot. the versions that differ in this game release. While it was developed for the Sega, it was ported over to the SNES. So if you're going to play this, you're probably going to want to play it on the Mega Drive, as of course the original port is a lot better, but the Super Nintendo has alternate background art, so if you want to see that, hey, go nuts, knock yourself up. The MS-DOS version that was released later featured CDDA music track, more voice clipped, and smooth overall graphics, but lacked the Lorentz soil level. So, versions of the original PlayStation and Sega Saturn contain upgraded audio and all the levels from the original, and both of those versions were identical and contained background art and graphical differences that were minute. So, overall, if you're interested in getting this, you can probably find it on the Virtual Console for fairly cheap, and of course, if you happen to have a Game Boy Advance, you can probably find the port for 2002. But do remember, Game Boy Advance is scaled down, so it probably has not the best graphics, bad sound and audio, and perhaps glitchy gameplay too. So, if you're in the mood for some Earthworm Jim, Earthworm Jim 2 will satisfy that itch from the 90s, when cartoons used to be the bomb and made no sense. I'm Protomario, I'm signing out, and I give Earthworm Jim a solid B+. While it does feature some brutal difficulty and very light amount of changing in the graphics, in the end it is very similar to the first one, so if you enjoyed the first one, you probably will enjoy the second one. And being a very cheap game, it'll probably end up in your collection if you're really interested in getting some Earthworm Jim on. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming, guys.
Well done.